Hi, I'm Brian Crandell with the Ray and Sourdough Fire Departments. I'm working with the Gallatin County Fire Council and Gallatin County Emergency Management on a project that describes how we can live safely with wildfire in the interface.
The wildland-urban interface refers to homes which are in and on the edge of wildlands and forested areas. Homes in the wildland-urban interface are particularly susceptible to fast-moving wildfires. The purpose of this video is to provide you with the critical information you will need as a homeowner to protect your house and your property against the threat of fire. Homeowners in the grassy plains below forested areas also need to learn how to create a defensible space.
Defensible space is critical for the survival of homes in a wildland fire. It's also critical for the safety of the firefighters who are ready to come help the property owner defend their property from an approaching wildland fire. Defensible space is on private property, and it's the responsibility of every individual property owner to create and maintain that defensible space around their home. Firefighters are ready and inclined to place themselves, their bodies, between the fire and the home. In order to do that safely, firefighters need property owners to have defensible space so they have a safe place to operate from.
Several aspects which can increase the likelihood of fire around your house include the presence of conifers, needle-bearing trees and bushes located next to the home. Combustible roofing such as non-treated cedar shake shingles, exterior wood paneling, or wood sidings which have not been treated with a flame retardant can also be a fire hazard. Other combustibles close to the house, like wood piles and propane tanks, can provide added fuel for a fire. Remember to follow the 3 R's: remove, reduce, and replace. Remove dead and dried vegetation. Reduce dried or dead parts of vegetation. Maintain space between tree canopies or treetops. Fires can jump easily from treetop to treetop, and keeping debris clear from underneath will help prevent the spread of ground fires. And replace highly flammable types with non-combustibles or alternative landscaping.
Today we're going to go to a number of homes in the Gallatin County area where the property owners have done an exceptional job preparing their home to exist safely with the hazard and threat of wildland fires. We're here at the Rose residence on Indian Paintbrush. What we have here is a house that is set up very well from the standpoint of defensible space that keeps the fire off the house and also provides a safety zone for firefighters to operate in the event this home is threatened by a wildland fire. I'd like to take you through a few of the key characteristics right now. Over here we have a non-combustible separation between the yard, which is combustible, and the home, which is combustible. So if a flying burning ember from a fire approached this house and hit the home and landed on the ground, it would not have fuel to burn the house down from the outside. The shrubbery choice here, or the vegetation choice here, is not a conifer base. What you have here is fire-resistive plants, and as a result, this makes for a safer yard in relation to a flying burning ember getting into the vegetation, which could subsequently ignite the house. In this case, there's 2 reasons why this home is fire safe. The first is the choice of vegetation is not very combustible. Secondly, if you look at the standoff distance between the vegetation and the home, it's sufficient so that in the event these shrubs do ignite, they're far enough away from the home that you're not going to get an ignition of the home from the location of where the plant is. This is the Rose's deck. What's really successfully been managed here is the fuel load underneath the deck. We can see that the only material underneath the deck here is non-combustible. It's rock. That's really important. If a flying burning ember or a grass fire were to get established under here, and if there were combustible litter or plywood or 2x4s or the summer lawn furniture or firewood stored under here, and that material started to burn, you can see very clearly that the deck itself is made of wood, so the deck is going to start on fire. The Roses have done an excellent job here with their defensible space, and they've managed one of the most vulnerable areas attached to their home, which is the underside of the deck. Lastly, if we look at how this particular home is situated in relation to the tall grasses, the kind of prairie grasses that exist a lot in the Gallatin Valley, we'll see that this property owner, the Roses, have done an excellent job of managing the first 60 feet or so out from their home. What that does is 2 things. One is it stops the relatively large flames at about 60 feet out from the house because the grass is maintained. It's mown down to a level where the fire intensity coming across that lot will be pretty significant. When it hits the area that's mown down, the fire will become smaller and more manageable. Also, the distance is set up in such a way that firefighters could actually stand at the home and stop the fire's advance coming out of the tall grass toward them. Another part of defensible space is a perimeter fire break. If we look here, what we see is the grass being maintained and cut down to a very short level. What this does is allow a property owner to be confident that any fire that is coming at their property from off their property will diminish in its intensity once it approaches this perimeter fuel break. You'll also notice that it serves the interests of the individual property owner, because if there's a fire on the property owner's land and it spreads to the boundary, that fire will diminish in intensity once it reaches this area. Maintaining a perimeter fuel break around your property is good for you, it's good for your neighbors, and it's very good for firefighters. The Roses wanted to have some conifer trees in their yard. That's not a problem from a firefighting perspective if they're positioned correctly and maintained well. We notice right here that the Roses have a seeper type hose for watering, and that this tree, in fact, is some probably 25 feet from the Roses' house. That's a very good deal. If we look at it right here, we'll see some of this combustible litter or duff. That's a very receptive area for flying, burning embers. The fire gets into the bottom of the tree, it will heat the tree up, and eventually the tree will ignite all pretty much at one time. We call that torching. The owners of this house are ready to live in the interface with the hazard of wildland fire facing them all the time. This is a set of hoses and a sprinkler that's connected to a yard faucet here that would be placed between the approaching wildland fire and the home in the event this home is threatened by a wildland fire. This individual property owner is meeting their responsibility personally by being ready for the hazards that face their house. We're where the driveway to number 13 Indian Paintbrush meets Indian Paintbrush. You can see that the Roses have posted a very visible reflective sign on a metal base that says this driveway at this intersection with Indian Paintbrush leads to number 13 Indian Paintbrush. That's really important to firefighters because our map books are set up around the numeric of your address. That's what we see when we're looking for your house on the map. In order for us to find it quickly, when there's a lot of smoke in the air or the wind is blowing or there's a lot of confusion in the area because of a wildland fire, having good addressing helps us get to you quicker. If you look also at the Rose's house here, you see that the number 13 is clearly displayed on the home. That's important to emergency responders because that affirms that this driveway, in fact, connects to number 13 Indian Paintbrush, and in fact, that is number 13 Indian Paintbrush. That helps us get to you quickly. During a wildland fire that threatens homes, firefighters will need to use the street signs to help them find your house. It's critical that neighborhoods maintain the signs in a way where they're not obstructed by anything that would cause firefighters to not be able to see the sign. This particular sign has got a metal base on it, and the sign itself is metal. That's really critical. It's also important that neighborhoods maintain the accuracy of the sign. The sign has to actually reflect the road and road name that the street is called.
Coming here to Montana was a new experience for us. We had lived in Texas previously. We had to learn a whole lot of things. Among them was the fact that here in the interface we needed to provide defensible space. Now that we've done this, we can be much more comfortable with the fact that we will be able to preserve our home and also be helpful to our neighbors in providing defensible space.
In this area, we have streets used as fire breaks along with some active reduction of grasses by cutting on either side of the road. That does two things for this neighborhood. One is if there is a fire in the neighborhood, it restricts the area that the fire can spread with full intensity. It also gives firefighters a safe place to operate from when they're attacking that fire.
Maintain private roads and bridges. The width and weight-bearing ratio for access bridges is important. In order for fire trucks to pass over them, they must be 20 feet wide and able to hold 60,000 pounds. A professional engineer should check bridges at least once a year. Around the home, there are other safety precautions you can take. Check and maintain your chimneys and flues. Store all gasoline and propane gas tanks, including BBQ'S, at least 30 feet from the house and have an additional 10 feet of clearance around them. Store wood and other combustible objects at least 30 feet away from the home. Never keep dry firewood under the deck or on the side of the house. Human life is more important than property. Make sure your family knows an emergency exit procedure out of the home and out of the neighborhood. Have a prearranged meeting place. Always listen to the instructions from the authorities during fire events and identify at least 2 escape routes both from your home and your area. If your home is threatened by a wildfire, first, switch on a battery-operated radio to obtain the latest emergency information. Be mindful that nearby fires may have knocked out power and phone lines. You can find fire information on 1600 AM and 1700 AM on your radio. Take down flammable drapes and curtains. Close and seal windows. If you have metal blinds or non-combustible window coverings, close them as well to help reduce drafts. Close doors and windows to help prevent the spread of the fire and smoke. Close all gas valves and turn off pilot lights. In case of heavy smoke, turn on all lights both inside and outside to increase visibility for yourself and emergency workers. Take these proper precautions and your home can become a defensible space against a wildland fire.
In closing, remember that defensible space is critical for your home to survive a wildland fire. It's also critical to provide the place where firefighters can make a stand and keep the fire from burning your home. Preparing your home to be safe during a wildland fire event is a lot of work, and there's a lot of help and a lot of assistance and information out there available to you, the property owner, from your local fire department. At the end of this videotape, you'll see the names and contact phone numbers of the fire departments in Gallatin County. If you'd like assistance or further information or a visit from a firefighter, please call the number that you see on your screen.